Welcome to Electrified. It's your host, Dylan Loomis. So, Tesla released its 10K today, which is a document required by the SEC of public companies for the financial performance for the year. It's basically the annual version of a 10Q. This will be part one because it's a massive document with a lot to learn about Tesla, both as a company and as a stock. So today, I just want to get through the main highlights. I want to address the main criticisms of the bear camp with the release of this report. And there's some excellent insight that we got from Ryan Peterson with regard to the supply chain and the port issues. I've been waiting for something like this for a long time, so I'll give you all of the takeaways from his interview. Getting into it, a crucial reminder for any holder of Tesla stock. The intraday trading high was $1,243 per share for Tesla, and the low over the last year was $539. Remember, if you're signing up to own Tesla stock, you're also signing up for volatility. This will most likely increase given the interest rate and the inflation environment, so just something to keep in the back of your mind. And remember, as Tesla goes more mainstream, it will continue to be under public scrutiny, both by mainstream media and the public at large. The public perception and other factors outside of Tesla's control will additionally impact the stock price of companies like Tesla that garner a disproportionate degree of public attention. Tesla is essentially warning all shareholders that the price will fluctuate for reasons unrelated to the underlying fundamentals of the company business. You must remember this. Another very important reminder, if you don't have the time or desire to dig into the quarterly financials, that's okay. Tesla itself is telling you quarter-to-quarter comparisons of financial results, especially in the short term, are not necessarily meaningful, and these comparisons cannot be relied upon as indicators of future performance. So even though quarter one of 2021 feels like a long time ago, annual performance, looking at the full year 2021 over the full year 20, is absolutely fine and sufficient for most people, and can actually be a better indication of Tesla's actual growth rather than quarter-to-quarter fluctuations. Just a quick fun fact, adjusted for the 5-for-1 stock split of Tesla, at Tesla's IPO back on June 29th, 2010, it was priced at $3.40 per share. This chart shows the past 5 years' performance of a hypothetical $100 investment. This is the performance of Tesla in the dotted line, compared down here to the NASDAQ in the bold line down here, Tesla's peer group with the same SIC code, basically just meaning other automobile manufacturers. Tesla confirms we are increasingly focused on products and services based on artificial intelligence, robotics, and automation. Remember, I tweeted out the other day about Tesla growing revenue year over year 50%. Last year for 2021 compared to 2020, it grew 71%, right on track. Looking at the bottom line of 2021, Tesla's net income was $5.52 billion, a change of $4.8 billion over 2020, a huge, wonderful year. Tesla's CapEx for 2021 came in at $6.48 billion, up from $3.16 billion in 2020. Tesla does later guide in this document that CapEx for the next 2 years should be between $5 and $7 billion per year. Next up, Tesla highlights it right here, increased port congestion. This has been a huge theme all year long, not just for Tesla. We haven't really had any insight into what's actually going on. How can we understand this? Is it going to be solved? How can it be solved? We finally get some excellent insight from Ryan Peterson, the CEO of Flexport, so let's have a listen. First of all, if anyone gives you a simple answer about the supply chain problems, it's basically wrong, as it's way more nuanced than just congested ports. The pandemic caused a shift to people buying physical goods, and imports are up almost 20%. That led to the current infrastructure, meaning the number of ships, the capacity throughput at the ports, trucks, and availability. There just are not enough. There is no modern port infrastructure. The technology is there to fix it. You just need management, and you need extra labor, and you need to negotiate to implement these changes. Right now in the United States, the union decides who works at what ports every day. There's no continuity day to day, which is how most businesses actually implement new changes. You also have China's zero tolerance policy toward the pandemic, which has led to shutdowns here and there. For example, if one port worker came down with the illness, they would shut down the entire port, sometimes for a matter of weeks. This is not happening in the United States, which is of course a good thing. You cannot add more ports, as only certain geographic areas can function as ports globally. You need to focus on improving the existing ports. Right now, it takes about 115 days from when the goods are ready to be picked up to when they are actually delivered. Before the pandemic, this figure was at 50. So there are huge inefficiencies here. Companies are less agile because of this, and it makes forecasting incredibly difficult. It may lead lead to a lot of companies who don't have sophisticated forecasting systems to have excess supply over the next 6 to 12 months if the demand changes. With regard to the infrastructure bill in the US, right now $17 billion is allocated to ports from the US government, but it's not focused at all. It's right now supposedly going to research, whereas you compare Singapore, who's investing $20 billion to have the most advanced port in the world, to act as an example for other ports. The US government probably should be doing this, taking a more focused approach to spending and improving the ports. Also, in the US, local cities actually own the ports, basically renting them from the government, whereas in Europe, it's more of a strategic national asset. So for example, what if the mayor of Oakland, their priority is not actually improving the port? They're just not focused on the issues like we would want them to be. You actually cannot run a non-union port in the United States. The government owns the ports, but then as mentioned, rents it out, so you can't really do that much as a private owner of these ports. Ryan said you could actually 10x the throughput of the ports overnight if you just simplify the containers, putting them on trucks when they are ready using a free flow stack, using a mobile app to tell the driver where to take the container that's ready to go, rather than spending anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes getting the container they were actually there to pick up. And you guys know I'm not anti-unions, but unions tend to slow down progress and add inflexibility, as every change must be negotiated, and if a worker is not performing, you can't get rid of them. That applies to the ports and also applies to Elon's view and why Tesla is a non-union company. The good news here is that the companies that will win and have extra competitive advantages are the ones that excel at integrating their supply chain. Crazy stat here, over the last 20 years roughly, the price to ship a container from China to the West Coast for years was $2,000. Last year, it was $20,000 or 10 times more expensive. This creates a barrier to entry. Currently in California at the truck yards, you can't stack containers more than 2 high, whereas in the rest of the world, you can stack up to 6 high. Also, crucially important, on July 1st, there is a possible union strike. This would be for the whole West Coast of the United States, as the union contract expires then. Typically, there are slowdowns leading up to this time. And the one thing Ryan was most concerned about is that on January 1st, 2023, which is basically a week away in shipping terms, all ships need to reduce carbon emissions by 13%. This is being enforced by the International Maritime Organization that oversees all ocean freight. Basically, he said there's no way to achieve this goal other than just slowing down the ships in terms of a 30% slowdown. The same carbon will be emitted, but having the ships go slower will reduce the overall shipping capacity. And he said this law does not actually achieve a carbon reduction and could lead to more slowdowns and thus more problems as early as 2023. So hopefully that gives you some extra insight into the supply chain problems and the ports and things that people continually talk about, and we'll have to continually watch how Tesla chooses to integrate its own supply chain. A possible indication here, talking about Tesla's available sources of battery cell supply by manufacturing our own cells that we're developing to have high volume output, lower capital and production costs, and longer range. So maybe we will see range boosts to Tesla vehicles once the 4680s are integrated. A quick update on Tesla Energy, the long-term success of the business is dependent upon increasing margins through greater volumes. For the Megapack, energy storage deployments can vary meaningfully quarter to quarter. Remember that. It's also important to remember that Tesla is in the process of phasing out the Power Pack, so that's going to lead to some cost and production inefficiencies as they decrease the output of the Power Pack and increase the scaling of the Megapack. Tesla is collaborating with real estate developers, which I love to hear, and builders on new homes to reduce installation time and costs. And Tesla is in need of skilled electricians to help support the ramp of the solar roof. So if you or anybody you know, Tesla generally expects operating expenses relative to revenues to decrease, which will lead to improved margins. For Tesla holding Bitcoin, remember that any decrease in the fair value below Tesla's carrying value, essentially when they bought it, will cause Tesla to have to recognize impairment charges, whereas they make no upward revisions, so there are no financial statement benefits from holding Bitcoin until a sale. For 2021, Tesla recorded $101 million of impairment losses, and they had gains of $128 million on certain sales of Bitcoin. And currently, Tesla has about $2 billion worth of Bitcoin. The vesting period for Tesla restricted stock units is typically 4 years, and for the employee stock purchase program, the vesting period period is 6 months. And remember, despite Tesla's increase in automotive revenue, it was actually offset by selling about 28,800 less of the Model S and X, as the refreshed version ramp didn't get started until the second and fourth quarters for the S and X respectively. Automotive regulatory credits for the year decreased $115 million or 7% for 2021, ending the year at about $1.4 billion for the year. There was a decrease in the combined average Model 3 and Y cost per unit due to the changes in the regional production mix, as Giga Shanghai has ramped in capacity, where the costs are lower from localized procurement and manufacturing in China. Model Y gross margins have also benefited from shared manufacturing of the Model 3 and learnings from the scaling of past products. The main reason for Tesla's negative gross margin for energy generation and storage was from a higher proportion of solar roof in the overall energy business mix, which operates at a lower gross margin due to temporary manufacturing underutilization during a product ramp. And R&D expenses as a percentage of revenue remain consistent at 5%. A quick update on the Diaz vs. Tesla case: on November 16th, Tesla filed a post-trial motion for relief that included a request for a new trial or reduction of the jury's damages, which were supposed to be almost $137 million. The court held a hearing on Tesla's motion on January 19th of this year, and a decision is expected soon. Now let's get into the main criticisms, or the FUD, or the bear takes from this 10K. First, more recently on November 16th, 2021, the SEC issued a subpoena to Tesla seeking info on our governance processes around compliance with the SEC settlement as amended. Most people, including Gary Black, believe this has to do with Elon tweeting about selling 10% of his Tesla stock. The SEC likely wants to know whether the board approved Elon's tweet, which clearly impacted the stock price. I'm personally not worried about this because remember, it was a set, predetermined 10b5-1 plan, so I really don't think this was something that Elon just did on a whim. Well before the tweet, Tesla and most likely the board should have known that Elon was planning to do this. Gary said, "None of the PMs I spoke with this morning think it's material. I don't think it's material. In the absence of any communications from the company, media is making more of this than it deserves as usual." So yes, something to be aware of, but not something to worry about for now. Also, one of the leaders of Tesla Q on Twitter, Lewis Carruthers, pointed out some things from the 10K that I want to talk about to add some clarity and context. And if you're sitting there saying, why are you wasting time talking about this guy, or why are you talking about Gordon? I personally think it's really important to get out of the Tesla echo chamber, look at the FUD, look at the bears, and see what they are saying, and actually unemotionally just analyze their arguments of Tesla so that we can understand the bear case. So he points out 3 basically one-time or non-recurring items that would impact Tesla positively. So first, he pointed out $365 million of a one-time release reserve that positively impacted Tesla that he said won't in the future. So let's have a look. So he's claiming that Tesla had an extra $365 million of profit during the year that it really otherwise shouldn't have had. However, going to the 10K, we adjusted our sales return reserve on vehicles sold with resale value guarantees, resulting in an increase of automotive sales revenues of $365 million for 2021. However, there's more, and a corresponding increase in cost of automotive sales of $286 million. The net benefit in gross profit was only $79 million for the year. Bear in mind, Tesla's GAAP net income for the year was $5.5 billion, so $79 million is not material. He mentions $200 million of a one-time accounting change. So what's he talking about? Well, on January 1st, 2021, Tesla adopted the ASU using the modified retrospective method. Basically, they changed their accounting practice. All you really need to know is that the primary impact of this change was to decrease net interest expense by $204 million and to decrease depreciation expense by immaterial amounts. This had the effect of increasing our diluted net income per share of 20 cents. Remember, for the full year, Tesla's GAAP diluted earnings per share was $4.90, so this change, if it wasn't there, would have had them at $4.70. Is that one item going to blow up Tesla as a business? The answer is no. And we have to remember, and part of the reason I'm pointing this out is because these one-time items, whether it's a positive or a negative impact, are always going to happen to Tesla. They always happen to other companies. Some quarters it might be more, other quarters it might be less. But to have a pure, clean quarter or a pure, clean year, whatever that might look like, is very rare, as things are always changing. So the point here is that all of the Tesla bulls will run to pull out all of the one-time items that impacted Tesla negatively, and it's very good to know. The bears do the opposite. They'll go pull out all of the one-time items that impacted Tesla positively, and then you'll have these back and forth arguments. But the point is, it is good to understand both sides and to have an idea of how things would have been different without those one-time items. But ultimately, the numbers are the numbers, and the numbers are really good. And just to provide some context for the third one, $577 million increase in recognized government rebate revenue, recognized, not expected to actually be received in 2022. So this is a balance sheet item that has to do with accounts receivable. Government rebates already pass through to customers and maintenance services on vehicles owned by leasing companies. Government rebates can take up to a year or more to be collected, depending on the customary processing timelines of the specific jurisdictions issuing them. As of December 31st, 2021, we had $627 million of long-term government rebates receivable in other non-current assets on our consolidated balance sheets. And just so you can see it, here's the consolidated balance sheet where it would show up under the other non-current assets, currently at $2.1 billion for 2021. Basically, non-current assets are investments that won't fully be recognized in the current accounting year, but that does not mean that they won't ever be recognized. So my personal opinion, well, if this is the best the bear argument is gonna get against Tesla financially, then color me not worried at all. The fact is, throughout 2021, I could go pull out over $1 billion of things that negatively impacted Tesla that would completely offset all of these. However, these really aren't strict negatives once you understand the context behind what's going on. And remember, a subpoena is just a request for more documents or more information. Tesla will provide it, and hopefully, most likely, this will be a non-issue. And the last thing today from the 10K, I know it's a lot to digest. As of the end of December 2021, Tesla's full-time count for our and our subsidiaries' employees worldwide was 99,290. This is such an unfortunate news item. Tesla gets all supercharger cables at a brand new station cut off and stolen. This new station was in Oakhurst, California, subject to vandalism and theft. As you can see from this image, all 8 cables just cut straight off. So I'm not really sure what Tesla can do about this other than maybe installing cameras at supercharging sites, which is just an overall unfortunate situation. I wish people would just act better. From Tesla Adri, speed bumps are now being rendered on non-FSD beta cars. It's unclear whether the car is actually reacting to the speed bumps, but they are showing up in the visualization. There were also some other videos shared that do seem to show the car slowing down for the speed bumps. But that's gonna do it for today. As mentioned, we'll continue to break down the 10K into this week. Please take a second to like the video if you did. Hope you guys have a wonderful day, and a huge thank you to all of my Patreon supporters.